Okay, so this is, I'm calling this Lecture 5, even though it's really the first lecture for NRGY 292 Independent Study, Fall of 2015. And we've got Levi here in the classroom and Mark. And I'm gonna do this in 3 parts. So the first little lecture is going to be just some kind of big picture thing, so petroleum-based transportation that I just mentioned to you guys. The second part, we'll look at the Shell Eco Marathon rules, what we've done in the past, things like that. And then in the third part, we'll try to break it down a little bit and see where we are in the 2016 build, and start doing some assignments, just see what you guys think you could best contribute, what you want to learn, so that the whole vehicle comes together in 2016. Okay, so I don't have really a great set of slides on this, so I'm just gonna talk. And as I mentioned this morning on my way into work, I was trying to think of an interesting topic or graphic, and so in a couple weeks I'll have something, and I'll probably record the thing, and maybe you'll see a better graphic that's coming out of PowerPoint. But the idea, and this is something that we're also going to cover in NRGY 101 and 102 this fall, is the notion that the energy that we're consuming, the majority of the energy we're consuming, is fundamentally solar. All of the natural gas, coal, and oil that we're consuming, all of those bonds, those carbon bonds, those hydrocarbon bonds, were created by some kind of biological process. And all of that biology was driven through photosynthesis. And so the analogy to make, or the running joke to make, is that all cars are solar-powered cars. Just that the sunlight happened a long time ago. And we also talked about in 101 and 102 the fact that we are consuming these biological resources at a rate that's about 10 million times the rate at which they were deposited. We've also talked a little bit about the fact that our energy consumption rate is about 1/2500th of the rate at which sunlight reaches the planet, meaning that you would have to cover a substantial portion of the Earth's surface with solar panels if you were to replace fossil fuels overnight. So that's kind of some of the big picture. And then the visual that I want to give you, and unfortunately I don't have any slides to go along with it, but one is to imagine, instead of fueling our trucks, cars, airplanes, etc., with fossil fuels or petroleum products, ancient carbon bonds, if we were to do that simply with biofuels. And so the visual is one of an airplane, flying overhead, and obviously that airplane casts a shadow on the ground. And so the question is, what would be the actual width of that shadow if instead of just the sunlight from the sun casting a shadow from the plane, what if instead that was this airplane sort of vacuuming up the biomass in its path? The question is, how wide would that shadow be? And so you can imagine these airplanes zigzagging back and forth, and eventually missing a lot of biomass on the Earth because it's consuming it. So that's a problem. Actual pencil paper problem that we can do in class. Another one, and I don't want to get into it in this lecture, but it's something to think about, and something that I remember pulling out of a physics textbook my freshman year of college, and the question was, which is stronger, steel or gasoline? And again, the question is, well, how can you compare a fluid to a solid? But the way to do so is, and this has a lot of relevance to the Shell Eco Marathon, the way to do so would be to imagine sort of pulling your car through space with a filament or a tether of some type, and to do so at a certain number of miles per hour is going to require a certain amount of force to do so. And so depending on what material you build this tether with it's going to have to be a certain diameter so it doesn't fail. So all materials have some tensile strength, some critical stress at which they fail, and obviously the faster you want to pull this car along the road, either the stronger a material you're going to have, or you're going to have more of it, a fatter material. So we'll get into strengths of materials in this course. So that's the solid physics portion of it. The gasoline component comes in, and it's a similar thought to the airplane flying overhead and sort of consuming biomass. But if you could imagine a automobile that did not have a gasoline tank, but instead there was a little tiny pipe of gasoline on the road that it was sort of slurping up as it went along. It's just a little needle or straw or however big. So you can very easily calculate based on miles per gallon how big that straw would be. And you can just imagine a single gallon of fuel spilled out on the road. and so if you're getting 20 miles per gallon, it just comes down to taking 1 gallon of fuel and spilling it very carefully on the surface of the road. So you've got 1 gallon spilled out over 20 miles. In the case of the solar car, obviously, where you're not actually consuming any liquid fuel, you're just consuming photons as they come in. The analogy plays out really well in that the car itself is its own shadow, and it goes right back to that airplane analogy we were talking about. And so that's what you have. That's the size of your energy consumption footprint. So hopefully those 3 ideas can cook. One is a solar car, one is a bio-powered plane, and then one is this fossil fuel-powered car sort of sipping this 20-mile-long gallon of fuel, or whatever mileage you're getting with it. Okay, so I think that's kind of some of the big picture stuff that I wanted to get across for the Shell Eco Marathon and fuel efficiency, if you will. All right, so I'll pause that. Just wanted to kind of kickstart the whole class with those ideas going forward. 7 minutes, not bad. Okay, so next we'll get into the Shell Eco Marathon itself, and I'll show you a couple photographs.